Good afternoon. Welcome to the Strachan or Strawn Family Convention. My name is Charles Burnett. I am Ross Herald of Arms Extraordinary and have been appointed by the Lord Lyon King of Arms to be the supervising officer on this occasion. I am here to hear your views, your recommendations for someone to be representative of the Clan Strachan. That view that you hold, I will then report to the Lord Lyon, and he will decide whether to recognise that individual or not. You may wonder why a family convention. In Highland society in the past, if they had lost their chief or their leader, it became the custom for certain men of the group to come together in what was known as a derfin, a meeting, and they would decide amongst themselves who was the most suitable candidate to become the chief, because the chief or the head of a house has responsibilities, and one must ensure that whoever is chosen will take these responsibilities seriously, because he is the representative of a specific family group. In the Highland society, he was regarded almost as the father of his people, so that if someone was in financial trouble, for example, the chief would be expected to put his hand in his pocket and help out. I'm not saying that that would be the modern way. It is an indication of the responsibilities that the chief has. Now, may I introduce, although they probably need very little introduction, who is here sitting with me. On my left, we have Dennis Strachan, who is the convener and co-founder of, to give it its full name, the Clan Strachan Heritage Society Incorporated, commonly known as the Clan Strachan Society. And on my right is James Strachan, co-founder and, most importantly, treasurer of the society. We also have with us this afternoon my fellow officer, the Honourable Adam Bruce, who's sitting quietly in the corner. He is Marchmont Herald of Arms, and he has with him Sir John McEwen, Baronet, because early next month, on the 6th of June, not next month, the month after, they are going to have a McEwen family convention. So they're really here just to see how clansmen and clanswomen behave at a public gathering. I think James has already asked for all mobiles to be switched off, and we do have a photographer here, so I'd ask that no one else at the moment takes any photographs. We would like to arrange for a group photograph at the end of this convention. Now, I'm going to call first of all on Jim to say a few words, and then we will carry on with the convention thereafter.
I've been asked to give a brief history of how we got to this place so far. So I'd like to start by offering a general disclosure. As many of you know, there are two legitimate and proper pronunciations of the surname, those being Strachan and Strachan. I will use best efforts to make the correct pronunciation in accordance with the individual's family tradition. However, as a Strachan, I'm somewhat pre-programmed. So, as such, I beg your indulgence and understanding should I make a mistake. In 2005, Dennis and I created the Clan Strachan Society with the primary goal of bringing legitimacy and honor back to the name. For the first 3 years, we held a global survey. Over 300 respondents replied to the survey, and virtually all of those respondents supported Major Ben Strachan, CMG, Mill of Strawn to be our next chief. I think most of you know this. In 2008, a proposal was submitted to the court of the Lord Lyon, and the then sitting Lord Lyon King of Arms, Robin Blair, said that we had basically gone about it all wrong. He said we were lacking a sufficient number of Scottish armigers, and to our knowledge at that time, we really had none, or were unaware of any. Shortly thereafter, I filed my petition for arms, and then I helped Bill Strachan from New South Wales obtain his petition. And for 2 years, Bill and I were essentially the only Strachan armigers. In 2011, new guidelines were introduced by David Seller, and a letter was submitted, and it was confirmed that it was appropriate for us to move forward with ad hoc Graffiti or family convention. Dennis and I and our board of directors again set a goal that we did not want whoever to merge as commander or chief for it to be a Dennis or Jim decision or a society decision, but it in fact had to be an entire clan or family decision. For that reason, took almost 2 years to find the 25 qualified individuals that are sitting in this room and who have been authorized to attend the family convention. We sent over 3,000 emails worldwide, sent 300 letters to various Strachans in the white pages that appeared to have land ownership. We obviously advertised this in our newsletters and prominently on our website as well. One of the requirements was that we have a group that's geographically dispersed with strong representation in Scotland. Of the 25 people that were submitted, 11 were from the United Kingdom. 9 of those 11 are from Scotland. We have 8 Americans, 3 Canadians, 3 Australians, so a good demographic. Also during this 2-year period, while attempting to identify Graffiti candidates, a number of Strachans were granted arms. These included the Clan Strachan Society itself, Roddy Strachan of Benham, Martin Strachan from Queensland, Drew Strachan from Elgin, and Rob Strachan from the Mill of Strawn in Strawn has a petition pending with the Court of the Lord Lyon. Furthermore, with the help of Mrs. Rhodes, who's the Lyon clerk, we were able to meet Professor Sir Hugh Strachan as well. So at the present time, we have 7 armigers and 1 Armiger's society, so we have 8 essentially people here who have Scottish arms. Last year, 2013, we held a worldwide conference call. This conference call was again independently moderated by Mr. Michael Brewer, who many of you will meet tonight. We had 3 candidates at the time, and from the perspective of having to plan this thing, all 3 candidates were mutually supportive of each other and the will of the clan, which made things significantly easier from our part. These individuals were Charles Robert Lund Strachan from the Mill of Strawn, Professor Sir Hugh Strachan, Laird of Blenheim, and Roddy Strachan, Baron of Benham. The call concluded with unanimous decision to support Rob Strachan, Mill of Strawn, as our commander. I hope I speak for many of you that there were several reasons why the clan merged and why we all decided to support Rob. Rob and his family are the only Strachan's living in Strachan, and again have a 50-acre, the Mill of Strawn. They have a multi-generational tie to the mill, with little to no chance of it ever going away, hopefully. Rob has a legitimate heir to his name and arms, being Luke, his son, who's also very excited and very happy for the family. Rob has a strong vision for the future, and for nearly 50 years his family has been welcoming Strachan visitors to the Mill of Strawn, thus demonstrating not just an individual, but a family commitment to a bond of kinship and Highland hospitality. For those of us who know Rob, we know that he's a friendly, welcoming, a humble guy. He's non-pretentious, the most non-pretentious person you'd ever want to meet. He's well-traveled, articulate, and he's just over and all a good guy. Probably the last reason some of you may have selected to support Rob is because his father, Ben, years ago, obviously had broad clan support. Unfortunately, Ben is not in good health, and for this, we're thankful for Rob for representing the family. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. That's been extremely helpful. Would anyone like to ask any questions concerning what you have just been told? The great thing about a family convention is that it is a public occasion whereby you can stand up and honestly give your opinion, which I will note. So if you think Dennis and Jim are doing a terrible job, this is now the time to say it. Otherwise, if there are no comments, I may ask Rob to say a few words to us.
Thank you very much, Rob. Well, I'm not very used to this. I'd actually told that I had to make a speech about half an hour before lunch. I thought I was going to field questions. So in a way, I would almost rather do it that way, by putting it to you. What do you think about Clan Strawn, and how do you think that we should take the clan forward? Does anybody have a thought on that?
Now there's a challenge. And do not hesitate. You're in amongst friends. No one's going to criticize you. Rob is providing you with an opportunity, so please do let me know what you think and what you think should be the way forward for your particular family group.
Rob, I've got a question.
Sorry, would you be kind enough to tell me your name?
Yes, Drew Strachan.
Drew Strachan.
Yeah, I've got a question for you. I noticed that the Clan Strachan had a presence at the Boyne Highland Games a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Do you intend perhaps to, as commander, do you intend to have a regular meeting perhaps at the Boyne Highland Games every few years, or at any other Highland Games or anything like that?
Absolutely. Every year. Actually, Roddy, I think Roddy has been on the case. In fact,
yeah, I
we
can
were both
probably answer this question.
We were both at the Highland Games together this year,
correct.
and Roddy just pipped me to speak to the Marquis of Huntley.
Yeah.
But
well, in actual fact, we've been in touch with the committee of the Boyne Highland Games to see if they will allow us to. They have a tented village where different clans have a tent where they can welcome people. Now, the latest that I have is that they were having a meeting and they would let us know whether they were going to allocate us a tent or not. I had hoped we would have known by now, but unfortunately we haven't heard back from that.
well, that's
But we're certainly, I mean, I feel that that's something I think we should be doing as a family, is, putting our name on the map a little bit more by being at these sort of events. And, so that people who are Strachans that then wander around and see there's a Clan Strachan tent will start to get them more involved with this. Sorry, I didn't mean to take over.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with that.
My question, David Strachan here. Would you limit that to a Boyne, or maybe talk about the Lonach as well, where I'm trying to represent the Strachans of Glenkindie here. Bringing it into other parts, Donside, for example, as well.
Well, my answer for that is I don't know. I know that at the Boyne Games they have what they call the Clan Village, where you have a group of tents and you have the Farquharsons and well, Leasks, who are good friends of ours, and other people like that. I don't know they have that at the Lonnie game as such. And unless you were putting together, you know, a group to take part in some event, it's my knowledge of it is it's a much more event-led games than there's a mixture of both at a Boyne. But you're right. I mean, I don't mean that a Boyne's the only thing. Because of this year, 2014, there are lots of Scottish things going on. And again, that's a great opportunity to fly our flag. Anyway.
I think I'm correct in believing that our two Strachan and Strong gentlemen at the table have had representation at Highland Games in America, have you not?
Yes, I was doing it before I even met Jim, just to put the name out there. And talking with Jim today, the Boyne Games would certainly be something that we would like to see maybe in about 3 years, so we give people a chance to save up, to come over and have a full clan gathering of Straughans and Strachans from throughout the world. Whereas basically we come in and just fill every inn in a Boyne and the surrounding area. And I've been doing, myself personally, I've been doing games on the west coast of the United States for years. I will go anywhere from San Diego all the way up to Washington, near the Canadian border, and then over to Arizona and Nevada. In fact, I fly out tomorrow to Las Vegas to hook up with my wife, who's doing the games in Las Vegas right now, and then I'll drive home with her. But we're extremely happy that the name has been up at a Boyne, and I agree with Dave, is that we maybe look at doing the Lanark games, of which I've been to, maybe even Braemar. Get up the D a bit and get up to Braemar. So I think it's great that that we get back out there, and as you said, Roddy, we get the name back out, and like I said, I'd like to see maybe 3 years we get a large gathering, we get 100 people, maybe more, and just put it out. I think it'd be good.
I should also point out, Warrant, I'm going to give you the floor.
Yes, in Canada, last year we started going to games in Ontario.
If I'm not mistaken, right?
I don't think anyone can hear a word you're saying,
Okay.
Jim. So, any comment should be public.
Okay. Go ahead, speak up.
Now, may I introduce Floyd Strachan from near Toronto in Canada. Near Ottawa, sorry.
Strong from near Ottawa. Last year we started going to Highland Games. We went to 2 Highland Games in Ontario last year. I would have a comment on our clan. Obviously, at this stage, it's incipient. None of us have real clarity as to what it can become. But I would encourage Rob to create a committee around him, particularly of Scots that are close to you, that can advise you and support you. Certainly Hugh and Roddy would be a good start, and others who may be here or may not be here, but who can help you walk through the process of creating a clan.
Yes.
It would be a challenge.
And if I may, to George Strachan from outside of Philadelphia in the United States. We've been talking about outreach and expanding the clan name, but I would also encourage you, not that we haven't had this conversation, but you know, having a place for Strachans or Strongs to come to the mill, and you've lovingly accepted me and my family and others around us, and obviously I need not, but obviously I encourage you to continue to do that moving forward, and you know, extending the Highland hospitality that you've extended to me, to others in our clan.
Yeah, thank you for that, George.
Thank you for your hospitality.
Yes, I get the impression that one might have to take a little care how you go about things, because at the moment the clan idea is being driven from across the Atlantic. But these two gentlemen have ensured that it will have a strong Scottish base. So if you're asking the proposed candidate for as representative or commander, and asking him to have a committee to help him, then whatever kind of organisation is arranged in Scotland, you've really got to work out a communication system so that you're working together hand in glove. Otherwise, you know what clan politics are a minefield, an absolute minefield, and it causes so much distress, and you have to be very careful to keep control of the organisation once you have it created. And I'm sure all here will be anxious to give every support they can to the proposed candidate. Are there any other points that you would like to make, Rob, or anyone else in the room?
I mean, there's the most obvious question I'd like to ask everybody, and that is really why they want a chief or a commander of their clan. It's something that I think I know what I think, but I would like to know what everybody else thinks here. What's the obvious reason for why you want to have a clan commander of the Strachan or Strachan clan?
Well, first of all, you...
I'm John Strachan from Denver, Colorado. I think for my own doubt, I'm sorry, I live in Norway, sometimes I speak Norwegian. For my part, I am fulfilling something that my grandmother and my grandfather were very interested in, and being again part of the Scottish heritage that they were born into and brought up in. This is kind of closing a circle and making it possible for us to have a hold point in Scotland that we can point to our children and say, you know, this is now a clan. You are a clan member if you wish. This is the person who is our commander, and hopefully will be our chieftain in a number of years. And that if you are traveling and you are interested in your family roots, which we all become sooner or later, even though we travel distances. I lived in Norway 20 plus years and then back to the United States, but I was always interested in finding out where I came from. And I think it's very important to have that whole point in Scotland with Robbie and the mill at Strong, and being able to say, this is where my great-great-grandfather immigrated from. And from a small croft in the area somewhere in the valley, I don't know exactly where, but being able to say that and say, if you really want to find out your roots, here's where you can go to find them. I think having that whole point is one of the most important things to have with a commander, a living representation of that. And I think that's, as I said, for my part, I think that's very, very important. Thank you.
Now, you had a question. Just tell me your name.
Stuart Strachan.
I beg your pardon?
John Stuart.
John Stewart. Thank you. From Glasgow.
Glasgow. Well, being born and bred in Scotland, I think the kind of answer that you're really looking for is to put in, to enable a structure to fellow clansmen here to support you, but also to establish an identity that we really have to have a structure and an identity to push forward, to put the name forward for the Strachan clan.
How do you feel that in your life that identity, do you think that it's been enhanced by this?
Very much so. People who go out, I've travelled extensively all over Scotland, to the islands and all over, and always interested in why nobody knows who the Strachan clan is.
Yeah.
So we really need to be getting that name out by all of the clans persons here,
Yes.
for wherever they go, so they spread the name of the Strachan clan.
Thank you. Now, we do have Skype here. There are people abroad who are interested in this proceedings this afternoon. They may have points they wish to make to the floor. I am not sure if we are actually in contact with them not, but the opportunity was given. I'm afraid the technology has let us down, Marchmont, so you'll have to watch and endure it. But thank you very much, Rob, for coming forward and posing questions to them.
Sorry, I just,
Oh, I beg your pardon.
sorry, just a minor point. One of the reasons I think we should have a one commander is I think historically, you know, the family's been dispersed, you know, through the different houses, whether that's Glenkindie, Thornton, Monboddo, whatever, for years and years and years. And those areas have grown up with their own Strachan, you know, identity, which has then become diluted. And I think one thing I can see in having a new commander is actually bringing those houses back together, almost. So we're going back, you know, 400 years and bringing them all back together, and then actually reclaiming an identity which has been lost. That's from my sort of very naive, I'm afraid, historical perspective. That's what I feel.
It appears, Rob, that I'm getting a very strong feeling from this meeting that you are the preferred candidate, and you can now begin to see some of the tasks that are going to be ahead of you. Getting groups together, binding perhaps up old wounds and healing old problems, but certainly I think one of your tasks will be this business of keeping Scotland and America closely working together. I had lunch with these gentlemen yesterday, and I was telling them the story. I was in Oklahoma at the Highland Games a few years ago, and was told about this ancient Scottish tradition. I said, oh, what's that? It's called hurling the haggis. I said, oh yes. And he said this came about because wives would be going out onto the hills where their husband was perhaps planting, ploughing, looking after sheep, and there would be a stream in between her and the husband. So she had to throw his lunch to him. And she did this by tucking the haggis in a piece of string, and it had to be moved like this between her legs, and then she would throw it across the stream to her husband. And this was performed at the Highland Games, and so I had to say, well, I'm afraid I've never come across it. But it was an American thing, you know, as tartan, cutting the tartan was a Scottish minister, albeit in New York, who said, well, my church attendance is down during September. What can I do? And he said, oh, we'll cut the tartan. And he started a tradition which is original and it's American, and it's a good tradition. So some of these traditions could come back over to Scotland too, but we must be a little cheery of some of them. Now, are there any other points anyone would like to raise? The meeting has gone extremely smoothly. There have been no tears, no blood on the carpet.
I'll speak up.
Good man.
Rob Strachan from Glencoe.
Oh, right.
Now, you can correct me, Jim, if it's wrong, but I think at the teleconference last year, as far as I'm aware, Rob got 100% support for the role of commander. And I think that speaks volumes, because the teleconference lasted longer than I thought, and there was very many good points put forward, and the 3 candidates were interviewed in detail. And I think that the fact that you get 100% support speaks volumes. You know, Lost Souls one now is a chance we have a leader, a father of the clan, and we really like, and I'm quite sure the hospitality will be there. Is it?
Absolutely, of course it is, and it has been as well in the past. And you know, because Strachan's from all over the world, the McDonald's don't have this problem, do they? And a few other clans.
There've been too many other
be careful what you wish for. But perhaps we need to give that some thought. If there's a way around this pronunciation thing, I think we should think about it at least some more.
Well, but, excuse me from butting in, Lloyd this morning at Lyon office, tell them the story you told me about the folk from Scotland emigrating, who used the surname and pronounced it in a certain way, which you have retained, whereas back here in Scotland, we have gone away from the old pronunciation, some would argue, and we now say Strachan.
I'm not sure what the basis of that is, whether, I mean, perhaps in your book, Jim, you had said that originally in Scotland it was pronounced Strawn, and the migrants who went in the 1700s, 1800s carried that name with them to Australia or Canada or the Caribbean. And those of you who stay behind somehow use a different pronunciation.
We were talking about that yesterday, Charles and I. The initiative, what we think happened is during the Napoleonic Wars, the Mearns is a very fertile ground, and there was lots of food that needed to be grown in order to feed the troops. And those who migrated abroad, so basically the rent skyrocketed in Aberdeenshire, especially in the Howe of Mearns, and many of you saw that the other day. And as such, the Strachan, the poor folk like us, kind of went scattered around the world. Those that went abroad didn't have to worry about a Highland, Lowland stigma and could use the Strawn surname. And that's why in Canada, America, Australia, and elsewhere, the name is most popularly pronounced Strawn. However, if you were coming down from the Highlands and looking for employment in Glasgow, Edinburgh, or England, you really didn't want to use a Gaelic name, in which case it got anglicized into Strachan. And that's, first off, we have no proof to prove this, but that's the only explanation that seems to be viable, is that there was it was a, I forget what the linguistic name is called, but there's a linguistic term for that.
And I think to alter that situation would probably be a dangerous step. I think you should keep the two pronounced, not attempt to marry.
It is a point though that it makes you always seem a little bit unsure, because you're always sort of having to think, it's Drawn, pronounced, Strachan, as if you don't really know what you're up to. Yes, which is unfortunate that we can't be a little more single-minded. But
give everyone their Christian name. They forget me.
Well, we have been accused of being strunkens. So, just a thought.
If I could also bring one more point up as far as what this is, and Rob and I and Dennis and several other people have had conversations about this. Our plans for the future is we would like to put up and there's certainly a Mercat, as many of you saw, a Mercat cross within the village of Strawn. However, what we'd really like to do is put up some sort of a war memorial at the mill for all those Strachans who had died during World War I and World War II, to honor their memory. And again, we had also talked in the spirit of Adam and Innes of Lurney about possibly buying or procuring lands that are reserved in trust for the clan, and preferably, now this is obviously pie in the sky, grandiose, but it would be nice if we had a couple cottages and a great hall to have clan gatherings in, or if Bill and his family wanted to visit from Glencoe, we could just put them up in one of the cottages for free. These are some of the things that we've been dreaming about. It will probably take a lifetime to accomplish, but those are some of the things that Rob and I and Dennis, and again, I've had conversations with many other people here about that.
We could put a heritage center, something where if all of you had a little piece of history from your family, bring it in and we can keep it there. Place for not only to come to the mill, but also to come to the town and know that valley was where your family came from. And I'm hoping that I'll see that in my lifetime. I really would like to see us all have a place we can call home.
But it's very good to have a goal, to have something that you want to work towards. And of course, many clans already have such a thing. I'm particularly thinking of the Clan McPherson, which has a superb clan centre. All arbitrous clansmen have their arms up on the wall and so on. Lloyd has a fellow Canadian, McPherson, who is a superb heraldic artist, and he, I think, has painted these shields and gifted them to the centre. So I mean, the sky is really the limit, and the largest room in the world is room for improvement. The smallest room is a mushroom. So you have lots of ideas, and it'll be a case of having the will to take them forward. And what these two gentlemen here particularly need, and what the commander will need in the future, is support. There's so many people who will say, oh yes, I'll do that, I'll do that. But when it comes to doing the work, and sadly, we don't seem to be attracting young people nowadays for all kinds of things. So it'll be up to you to get your children heavily involved as well in the whole clan idea and take it on from there. Now, if there is no other business, no other comments at all, do you wish, as a possible candidate in the past, would you like to say anything, Sir Hugh?
Not at all. I think, I mean, I would simply obviously want to say how much I support Rob, and to say I think how wonderfully Jim and Dennis have put their shoulders to the wheel. I mean, it seems to me that to have been 9 years in the doing, we were going to the gents before we came up here, speculating how long you had been at it. And we underestimated by some considerable margin, I have to say. So it must be a great achievement to have got this far. While I'm speaking, let me quickly say, because war memorials happen to be part of my professional business, there are, when you get to that stage, there is some really serious thinking you have to do. But I'd wait till you get there. I mean, that's partly the obvious
just heard a committee.
The leader, right? The committee. But what you should also do,
without objection,
is you should look. I mean, the Common War Graves Commission website for a start. You will see there are many more Stracans and Stracans than there are just on the Scottish National War Memorial, because of course that will. And then when you think, how about all those other Stracans and Stracans who have served in the armed forces of other countries, rather than the countries of the Commonwealth and you know, the United States being an obvious example. So, I mean, there is a serious challenge in front of you in terms of addressing that.
And thanks for your help in advance.
They would get considerable help from the Secretary of the Scottish National War Memorial, because there, of course, he has a database of all Scots and those of Scots descent who've
in Scottish units and Scottish named units. Yes. So, for example, I mean, just to give you a bit of a purely family illustration, my grandfather was in the London Scottish. He would figure that, first of all, my great uncle was in an English regiment and was killed, and of course he's not. They're both in the same family. They're both Stracans, but one served in an English regiment. So, where do you?
Well, I think you might find that they are beginning to accept names. They are adding names all the time.
I know they're looking at their record right now.
So it'd be interesting to see, because I'm sure I've been told of Canadians of Scottish descent whose names have gone into the record here in Edinburgh.
Well, they've absolutely included that, and that's
but still, then you have an expert there to help, which is good. And this is the kind of thing that Rob will require. You may begin to set up a database of expertise in the clan. So Rob just looks up the index card.
That's what I like.
That's the man. So, but it will involve that kind of organisation. Yes, Lord.
At the risk of dominating the discussion, I think that one thing that we need to do here today is to thank the society for bringing this together. If it wasn't for these two gentlemen sitting here and your committee, we would not be here today. And we know that we will see results of your work in the future, and we really appreciate that. The other thing it strikes me is that we're a group of 24 here. There are probably a few hundred people in the world who know we're meeting today. Ideally, we should set up some sort of a PR strategy to try to reach out to all of the clan members, based ideally on our meeting today. I'm not sure what that could be, but probably, as Hugh is a specialist in one area, there are likely PR specialists among us sitting here today who can help this happen. I will certainly be willing to spread the word in Ontario if I get press releases or other things like that. And I'm sure that all of us can do our part in our own region.
And in this day and age, of course, one of the things that could be organised is a website. Maybe you have that already. So that is a good way for people, if they want to know more.
Can I ask the sort of crashing the obvious question? We have one Strachan who's particularly famous in Scotland at the moment, and has a particularly arduous job in terms of national expectation. Has any contact been made with him?
We've attempted.
Yeah.
We haven't heard it, and we don't know if it's getting. This is when he was employed with Celtic, and we don't know if the secretary was cutting it off or he just threw it in the rubbish.
Don't know the ways of getting in touch with him because he's got to be socially out there.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah. Well,
I was going to say, could we put a press release that this event took place?
yeah.
I hope you do, because the last Fianna that I chaired was up in Dingwall, and there were lots of photographs next day in the papers. So you should really, before you split up, write a press release and put it out, just saying this event has happened, watch this space, the Lord Lyon is going to make a pronouncement, and this new Lord Lyon will not mess about. You'll get a decision from him, I should think, within a few weeks, if not days.
There is,
Oh yes, he is really speeding up the process.
there is a bit of coming from Scottish Field this afternoon.
You have?
Yes, there's
Good.
a photograph of Scottish Field.
Excellent, excellent.
And
Now,
question
hold on, gentlemen, yes, young lady.
Would this come from Rob, or would it come from the society?
So Scottish Field's going to be here already. The press release will probably come from the society, and we've done press releases in the past. Matter of fact, after the conference call, we did a press release, and it came out in the Aberdeen.
Press Journal?
Yeah, that a man from the Northeast is risen.
Well, I might point out too that Maggie's a reporter from South Africa.
So, yes, we did. You've been very quiet, apart from funny sounds coming from your camera.
No, not mine.
Oh, no.
That could be my stomach. No, I'm not officially part of the meeting, but being a half Strachan, I'm sort of involved in it anyway. Yes, I've got a number of publications that I'll be covering the story for, and I'm very active on social media as well, and obviously willing to assume the mantle of PR, writing the official material whenever that needs to be done, whether we're looking at brochures or whatever it is to get the name out there. So that would be my job.
Are there many Strachans in South Africa?
Huge family.
Yes. Got one right over there as well. Let's raise your hand. There you go.
Right, good. Well, welcome to Scotland. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we seem to have exhausted comments, unless someone is desperate to say a word. All I can do as supervising officer is to thank you all very much indeed for coming along and making the efforts of Dennis and Jim worthwhile. As I've already said, it's quite obvious who you would like to be named for your representative or commander, and that is certainly the recommendation I shall make in my report to Lord Lyon. So thank you all for coming. Safe journey home when you eventually do go. Have a great time this evening. You've experienced lunch, some of you have experienced breakfast here in this club, and so you'll have a superb dinner, I know, later on. So thank you for asking, particularly Jim and Dennis, about things properly through Lyon office, and that is certainly the way to go, because it's the Lord Lyon, in this instance, is the complete heraldic autocrat of Scotland, and his word is law. And once you've got his word, then the sun will shine upon you. So thank you very much indeed for coming and being such a good convention audience. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you, Josh.